silhouette, followed so easy. And round we went, yet to give in to me. And the answer is a mystery, spoken softly like a sacred sin. Time was empty, no reality, losing grip on what we had within. Can I fool you? Can I fool you? Can I fool you? Can I fool you? I follow your silhouette, followed so easy. And round we went, yet to give in to me. And the answer is a mystery, spoken softly like a sacred sin. Time was empty, no reality, losing grip on what we had within. Can I fool you? Can I fool you? Can I fool you? Can I fool you? I have you and you have me, sounded so easy. But I got lost and you found me so easily. But then the world said, please tread softly, don't leave scratches on my skin. All was simple, its complexity, always begging me to let you in. I follow your silhouette, followed so easy. And round we went, yet to give in to me. And the answer is a mystery, spoken softly like a sacred sin. Time was empty, no reality, losing grip on what we had within. Can I fool you? Can I fool you? Can I fool you? Can I fool you? I follow your silhouette, followed so easy. easy. And round we went, yet to give in to me. And the answer is a mystery, spoken softly like a sacred sin. Time was empty, no reality, losing grip on what we had within. Can I fool you? Can I fool you? Can I fool you? Can I fool you? I have you and you have me. Sounded so easy. Ooh. But I got lost and you found me so easily.
Hello, everybody. Hi. It's good to see you. Hello. Let me get everything all finished, set up and everything. What do we got? We're on the wrong screen. Hold on. Well, we're not. I am. In the background. Alright, what do we want on here? We'll have our BGM. Some soft little music to accompany us in the background. And then I think tonight we're gonna have some chimes as well. Something nice and soft. I'm hoping this should be pretty quiet. Here we go. Here's that. That sound good? Did that sound okay? Be a bit louder. We'll turn it down a little bit. There we go. I think everything should mostly be in balance now. As is meant to be. There we go. It's good to see everybody. Hello. It's been a while since we had an ASMR stream, hasn't it? It's been a while. Let's see, I'm so sorry about the tarot cards. It'd be like that. It'd be like that sometimes. Next, I saw you peeking around earlier. Next is always one of the people that whenever I start streaming, I always get a little I see you message from from the Twitch chat in the side of my OBS. Can't get nothing by Nex. But Renegade, Amy, Maddie is a fire. Sparklight, Nyx and Ninja. Hello. Hi. Al, hello. It's good to see you. Yeah, that tarot redeem was still open from last stream. Like I said, it'd be like that. Devious behavior about to occur. Yeah, it definitely, there was devious behavior occurring. Let's see. Just catching up on chat real quick. Curse, hello. I'm glad you get to spend a little time with us tonight. Oh, Spark, I hope you can get some rest, and I hope your essay goes well. You might see my model going a little funky from time to time because I do have to get behind my full-sized mannequin head to whisper from ear to ear, so. Let's see. Oh, Nyx, thank you for the resub. Thank you. Amy, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the model colors. I did a little recoloring, changing some things around. You know, did a little, put a couple streaks in my hair. I changed my earrings. I changed my necklace too. I don't think you guys can see that. Here we are. We'll move up just a little bit. Now you can see my necklace swinging around a little bit. There we go. Oh, Nutmeg, thank you. I'm glad you think so. You need feather wings. I just a little cat witch. I don't know wings. I don't know that wings would suit me. I'm not the best with heights. I prefer to stay on the ground. Loving the ethereal feel. Oh, I'm glad you like it. That was kind of the vibe I was going for, so. I'm glad to hear that. I've got a little, some things I added for my ASMR streams already, as well. I added, some other little sounds. I don't know, maybe, yeah, we can maybe go through a few of the ones I added tonight. We can see how we're feeling about them. Pretty lighting, I like the white and pink. Oh, Nutmeg, I'm glad. Thank you. I have to go back and re-listen to my audio after this. Cause I don't know, there's just something about audio that like, you have to be a little distant from it. Like, hearing it when I'm trying to get a stream ready and getting the preview up and everything, it's just not the same. Sometimes I listen to my audio later and I'm like, oh my gosh, why was I like that? gotta clear my throat from time to time. I have some tea to help me out with that. I'm doing my very best to make sure I don't bump the microphone. It's quite a large microphone, so, well, microphone case, I suppose. So I'm trying not to disturb you guys. I want to make sure you rest well. I want to make sure you're tucked in and comfy. A little word slip there. But yeah, I think we can go through some of these other sounds, because there's one I like in particular. It has it's like a fizzy sound, sort of like a what were those called? The like tablets that you would drop in water. I think they were supposed to help with like upset stomach or something. Alka-Seltzer? Is that it? I think it was Alka-Seltzer. But I have one audio that's kind of like that. So we'll pause the chimes and the music for a moment for the full effect. And now we'll play that. We'll see how you adjust to that. I really like the bubbling noises. They're some of my favorites. It gives my brain the same sort of feeling as like the glub glub sounds, if you guys remember those. I think those would be a really good combo. I need to record some of that sound sometime. We'll bring our chimes and our music back. There we go. Sounds like sizzling bacon. I could see that a little bit. Violent on my ears, but in a good way. Oh, I'm glad it's in a good way, at least. I know it's a little bit of a aggressive sound. I might have to edit it a little bit. But it was just one I stumbled across earlier, and I thought it sounded nice. Actually, I don't know what I've done with it, but there was a trigger sound that I found while I was in Japan. And it was there was, I think it was a tiny Christmas tree. And it sounded, I can't explain it, but it was like, it had like little nylon bristles. It was like very, very small, maybe like, so it was like 6 inches tall or something like that. Very, very tiny Christmas tree. And I just one day was sort of absent-mindedly fiddling around with it, and I realized if I dragged my thumb down over the bristles, then it would make this really nice, like, sort of like when you drag your thumb down a comb, and it makes that, like, I can't even attempt to replicate it. But you know, it makes the sound, it makes that sound. It was a very similar sound to that. I knew Binks would get caught right away. I'm gonna try and we might get a little bit of incessant meowing from him in the background. I'm gonna see if maybe he will go find a place to nap though, because his food's out there, his water's out there, everything he needs is out there. And he is going to be a noisy little rascal if he tries to get in here. Cats are not good for ASMR microphones. Oh, he sounds so sad, doesn't he? I'm so sorry, Bings. He's not sad, I promise. He just wants to whine and then poke his head in and then leave in 10 seconds. Trust me, there's a routine. Little boy's got a routine. Tell him we said. I'll let him know. I'll pass it on. I'll consider the kiss. We'll see if it feels like he deserves it later next. She comes and yells and then leaves the air. Cat behavior. That is like a cat. I could do that. I could also, sounds always makes me think of like, I want to say, I think it was Heather Feather that sort of popularized, maybe invented, but at least popularized the, it's not exactly the same as a I think I tend to gravitate more towards the Sorry, I'm the loudest tea drinker in the world. I've talked to people on PC about this, and I don't know why, but for some reason, I can't drink quietly. Whenever I take a sip of something, it sounds like I am so dehydrated I'm trying to inhale the entirety of Niagara Falls in one slurp. Oh, Binks, you sound so sad. Oh no. Oh no. I promise I only laugh because I know he's perfectly okay. I know he is safe and fed and watered. He's just grumpy. Oh, Mew, thank you for the follow. It's good to have you here with us. Thank you for joining the coven. He's so loud, Binks. I'm trying to stream ASMR. The people need to sleep. Next, thank you. I appreciate I appreciate the trials and tribulations that you were willing to go through for me. Catlum and Big Special. It do be like that. It do kind of be us. It do kind of be a cat stream tonight. It do kind of be just a kitty stream tonight. Scratches for kitty. Good scratches. Do I add echo? I don't normally have any sort of reverb or anything added for my ASMR, but I did add it tonight. Just wanted to try it and see how it sounded. Also, just a heads up, there's going to be an ad break that's starting in about 30 seconds. I have ads running as limited as I can, but unfortunately, there will be those popping up in about 20 seconds. So, just a heads up to mute if you don't want to get your I couldn't think of anything that didn't sound weird. If you don't want to get your ears blasted by sound, then I suggest turning your volume down very soon. He is so incessant. No, not hearing things like that. Just, I'm trying to put a furry little thing on the ears so I could do this. I'll give you guys some ear scratches. But they don't want to stay on. why. Yeah, it's not staying over for some reason. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We got a stretch redeem and a posture check. Thank you. Oh, squeaky chair. Oh. Ay. Ninja Robin. Thank you. Reverb kiss. Oh, I forgot about this. I forgot that I could do this with this microphone. I could sort of do this earplug sound. That's one of my favorite sounds to do with this microphone. I think it sounds very, very pleasant. Trisket, thank you for the resub. Much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and Curse, thank you for the subscription. Thank you. No ads for you. Ads banished. What is it? Somatic? Verbal somatic? No, somatic is hand movements. Material components, that's the word I was looking for. The material components for the banishment spell for ads is $4.99 sent directly to Twitch for subscription. I don't know why that made me laugh so much, but it did. Sorry, I didn't mean to. $4.99 plus 41 cents tax. Those are the material components for the banishing spell, but the banishing spell only works on ads. And only on one specific link. Oh no, my tea is already going cold. Quick, slurp more. Dispa, thank you for the free cookies. Nom, 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 nom. Nom, 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 nom. Nom, 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 nom. Thank you. Thank you. I always get tempted to use my dice as like a trigger sound. but I feel like they don't actually make very good sounds. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's the sound and the visual of dice together that makes them very satisfying. And when you only have the audio, it's sort of not, I don't know. It's not as pleasant. Gotta get a long roll, yeah, and my dice are all, well, not all of them, but an inordinate amount of them are all metal dice, and so they all just kind of go thunk. I got clunky dice. Plus, I don't have anything super soft to roll them on. I roll them in a little wooden, what would you call it? Like basket, which is very beat up from metal dice. But, it's okay, it's okay. I actually have, I have D&D tomorrow that I'm very excited for. We just, leveled up in one of my campaigns, and I'm excited to go and, sling some new spells. I've reheated coffee to have at 12:30 a.m. Oh no. It's okay, I'll probably have some reheated tea to join you there pretty soon, Curtis. Pretty soon. Ooh, play Warhammer 40k for the first time. I hope you had fun with it. I hope you had a good time. It was Tiny Tina's Wonderland. That's how I found out how D&D works. Yeah, Amy, I hear a lot of people who say the same thing about they learned how D&D works through playing Baldur's Gate, and that does seem like it's a little bit of a rough, landing point, I suppose. But, I see a lot of people on TikTok who are like, yeah, I thought this was just gonna be a dating sim, and now I'm struggling for my life. People that downloaded it for Astarion, and now they're suffering. I heard something get knocked over in my living room, and I know my cat did it, but I'm choosing to ignore that for the moment. Still need to play Baldur's Gate. Yeah, me too. I'm very bad about actually playing the video games that I want to always end up getting sucked into, I get sucked into funky little indie games. Like there's this one game that I've been playing right now. And it's called, Balatro. And it's basically like, it's like if you turned poker into a roguelike, and you can get tarot cards, and you can get celestial cards. And your jokers power up, your jokers power up your hand, and I'm not gonna get too into it, but it's quite fun. It's quite addicting. So I've been here, I'll put it in chat. Oh, actually, I don't need to. Hammer got it. Yes, Balatro. If you want to watch some videos of somebody else playing to figure out like how it works and stuff, this is the username for the YouTuber that I watch that ended up getting me. That's actually the YouTuber that got me both into Balatro and into Hades. He's kind of the sole person who I hear about a lot of my indie games from. There was an indie game called Revita. There was another game I heard of from him called, what was it? There was Tiny Rogues. I also learned about Hades from that YouTuber, from Halion. Very, very long time ago now, but but yeah, Balatro is a nice, like, relaxing card game to play. Sometimes you do kind of be fighting for your life, but every time I play it, I was joking around with a family member. I was just telling them I feel like a 75-year-old woman sitting at her Windows 97 PC playing, like, what was the card game that used to be on PC? There was like, Solitaire. Solitaire is the one. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like a 75-year-old woman playing Solitaire. But honestly, if that's the feeling, like playing Balatro is like the same feeling they get playing Solitaire, I get it. I get it now. I understand. I understand the 75-year-old woman mindset. Finally tried that fruit game. Yeah, I haven't actually played the official version. I guess like the version that everybody else is playing. Because I think everybody else is playing the version of it on the Switch, which I do have, but I've been contemplating getting rid of because I never use it. But I've just been playing the browser version, and I don't know. I will say it's one of those games where it's not a rage game for me. I don't get, how do you put this? Like, I have fun playing it, but I don't get into it to the point of, like, getting invested enough to get, upset over it. But I do understand why it's a rage game from watching other people play. And it's very funny, because for those of you who know my wonderful dear friend Taiko Bay, I introduced him to Tetris or not to Tetris rather, but to the fruit game. Like he had seen it around and all. But I was telling him how much fun I was having playing it, or how invested I was with it, and then he said something to the degree of like, I don't understand how this could be a rage game, as he was finally deciding to play it. And then he sent me a screenshot like 30 seconds later with like a grape or something wedged into the corner, and was like, never mind, I immediately understand. It was very funny. It was very much just like the immediate response or the immediate understanding from Ty Colby. It was very good. It was very, very funny. Very, very, very funny. Quite comedic. I'm so sorry about all the mic bumping. I know I keep doing it. I have very big headphones and this is a very big microphone. I'm doing my best out here. We got Binks back. We got Binks here with us once again. It's like he keeps leaving just long enough to almost get comfy somewhere, and then decides, no, we shall not be comfy. We shall be the devil. Oh, Jinxie, thank you. Much appreciated for the threat, and hoi hoi. Hello. I also did just realize, I don't know if I have it anymore. I thought it was somewhere. I usually like to have like a little, like headphones recommended kind of banner on my, here we are. There we go. Where do we want to put this? Maybe right over here? Can't read it very well because that's kind of white on white, but it's okay. I just wanted to put it somewhere. I just like making sure everybody knows when they come in if they want to get cozy, that headphones are a good part of the experience. I missed you. Actually listened to one of your audios and I had a bad anxiety attack. Help me calm down. Oh, Jinxie. I'm sorry to hear you had an anxiety attack, but I'm glad I could help keep you calm at least. Or help calm you down rather, but hopefully there will be more YouTube content on the way soon. I have a couple scripts that are all ready for recording, so hooked up speakers so Siri can hear Salem. Bump it, get the bass boosted and everything. Hello, good morning. Good Morning, good morning, good morning. He is really just not, he is not having it. He really wants to come in. Alright, I'm gonna let him in real quick. And then I'm gonna see if he just gets in bed and quiets down and takes a little nappy nap. Or if he tries to get up to trouble. Well, we'll see. Because I don't think his meowing is stopping anytime soon. Okay. He's gone to lie on the bed, which is a good sign. We'll see what happens. He looks like he's ready for a snooze. Lappings crunch some dry food into the mic? Absolutely not. I have this like specific like misophonia with like mouth sounds from animals. Mouth sounds from humans aren't so bad, but for some reason like the sounds of like animals like eating or drinking water or like grooming themselves especially, oh, it's so bad. I can't do it. I don't know why. It's just it's a bad experience for me. Is the Discord being reopened? Possibly in the future. I don't want to make any promises on that front. It's a possibility, but it's sort of a low priority for me. Just in the sense of I want to make sure that my YouTube and my Twitch are most active, or are consistently active, first and foremost. And then once my Twitter, or once my Twitch and my YouTube are more consistently active, along with my Patreon, then my next priorities are kind of, my Twitter is okay, I think. My Twitter is maybe not as formal on there. I maybe personal posts a little more than I should, but it's okay. But yeah, once Patreon, YouTube, and Twitch are taken care of, then I want to make sure that my TikTok is consistent at the very least. And then my Discord kind of comes, unfortunately, sort of at the bottom of the list, just because to me, it doesn't really make sense to have like a community space for websites that I'm not active and consistent on. I don't know, that's just how I look at it. Having a Discord when I'm not active on my other stuff kind of stresses me out more than anything. So, like I said, it's a possibility in the future, just not a right now thing is all. Daki Shinzo, thank you for the follow. Thank you. Oh, Rory Mori, or even. Thank you for the follow as well. Thank you. Reverb kisses, more kiss per kiss, more smooch per smooch. think I need a little distance from the reverb to figure out if I like it or not. So tonight's kind of a little bit of a trial. We're checking it out. We're gonna see how things are with it, and then we'll figure out if we like it. But as usual, if you have strong feelings about it, please feel free to let me know one way or the other. Always happy to take feedback into account. I just think to me it feels like it makes things a little bit softer. And it adds a little bit of an interesting effect when I come in and I get like a little private whispering like this just for you, just for you. It's a little interesting, I think. Enjoy it as well, skeleton. Goldflower. Hi. It's good to see you. Thank you for the stretch. Oi. Oh. Got a little back crack out of that one. Thank you for the posture check, Amy. Thank you. Ooh, the muffled effect. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And that's actually something I can only do specifically with this microphone. Because it's got the ears on it. So I can just cover them up and I can just sort of do this and everything just sort of goes a little bit underwater. Yeah, this is one of my favorites. I enjoy that one quite a bit. I'm glad you do too. Under the sea, yeah. Yeah, I need to have like a little box of triggers. I had one a while back, but it's since gone missing, I suppose. Because I had my old clup, sort of sound, but there was that. There was the Christmas tree from Japan. This was one I've just kind of been fiddling with that I've been enjoying. Just flipping some post-it notes. I actually have... Hold on. Is there a chance of getting another video with the Healer Boy in the future? He was one of my favorites. Oh, I'm glad you like him. That was a script that I quite enjoyed as well, although that script is unfortunately written by somebody other than myself, so it's I wouldn't say unlikely, but I will need to reach out to them and see if they're either okay with me continuing the script, or if they're willing to let me pay them to write a follow-up script. I'm not sure exactly. But yeah, I have that problem with some of the, because there have been some characters from scripts that are not mine that people have really turned out to like the koi fish prince, the koi elf, I think it was, the healer boy. People seem to quite like the both of them, and they are unfortunately not my characters in anything more than the voice I've given them. But since they are, they do seem to be well liked, I will probably reach out to their creators in the future. We'll see. But it's always good to see whenever somebody asks about it. It kind of helps me file away another little note of like, alright, this is a popular character, so I maybe need to check on that. Dragon Boy 2. Oh, Ilya's coming back for sure. Yeah, Ilya definitely. He's a good boy. Ilya's a good boy. The Naga was always my favorite, and Finn. Yeah, that's the vampire's name. Yeah, I think my Naga, Avi, and my vampire, Finn, along with my dragon boy, Ilya, they're sort of my triumphant trio. They're all sort of the, I think they're kind of the top three of of characters that I have made. It's funny because you can, I check my analytics and everything on YouTube every once in a while. And there's like, over the lifetime of my channel, there are like a few distinct spikes of like sudden video viewership. And I think I think Ilya, Finn, and Avi all have spikes. I could be wrong. I think a deep cut for second favorite character is the cat boy. Oh my gosh, that's such an old video. That is kind of a deep cut. I'm glad you liked him. I never made a follow-up because he was just sort of meant to be like a quick, not quick, but like a casual, domesticity sort of vibe. But who knows? The werewolf groomer, yeah, that's one of my favorites personally. I like chartreuse. It's very good about just treating you like a good little puppy. And telling you what a good little puppy you are. Good puppy. Good puppy. Oh, what a good puppy. Oh, yeah. Oh. Blythe is, I always say I don't have a favorite character, and then I'm like, But Blythe though. I do quite enjoy Blythe. He has, I think the story I have for him in my head and the mindset that he has, it's like lonely magic forest vibes. It's quite I think Blythe is probably the best manifestation of my own taste in characters. I really like the water spirit. Oh, I'm glad. Finn was the guy who introduced me to your audio, so I have him to thank. Oh, I think a lot of people probably found me through Finn. I'm glad that you were able to find something in his videos that you enjoy. Oh yeah, the experimental sad audio. Yeah, that was a funky one. Oh, chair squeak. Yeah, I don't know with that one. I sort of woke up and I just had this like feeling. I don't know. It was truly like the most that I've ever been. Like I have something inside of me that needs to get out. That's like, just like that, you know, when people talk about like, there's some quote from some author, I think, that's something about like not telling stories. Like they don't make stories, they like tell stories that show up inside of them. Sort of similar to the idea of like sculptors that talk about how they don't choose what to sculpt, they sort of set free whatever is in the marble or whatever they're sculpting out of that sort of feeling. That's the closest I've ever come to that sort of feeling, where it was like just needing to get something out that kind of appeared within me. It was a very interesting experience. Ooh, Vampire Apothecary, that was an old one. I think that was, what, my second or third video. Yeah, that was quite a while ago. I want to say that was my second, because I think the first video that I ever made was like kind of dipping my toes into the water. I think it was sort of it was like a skincare sort of thing, wasn't it? Like taking off your makeup for you before bed. Yeah, I think that was the last one. I'm always a little like, dang, I don't have to scroll very far back to get to my oldest videos, do I? I need to post more, I really do. I want to. It was my third video, okay. Yeah, because we've got my makeup removal, and then we have my, like, study aid kind of video, and then we have my Vampire Apothecary video. Yeah. It's so funny because if I look at when I look at my oldest videos, just the view count is very funny, because it's very much like makeup removal, 35,000 views, study aid, 20,000 views, Vampire Apothecary, 28,000 views, And then you get to my first Dorky Dragon video. My first Ilya video. And it's almost 300,000 views, which is, first of all, insane, let me just say. But it's also just very funny that you can tell, like, where the spike is. It's quite funny. When the algorithm and popularity spike hits just right. Yeah, kind of did. Is your YouTube the same as your Twitch? Indeed it is, Ace. Yeah, I'm pretty much the same everywhere. Which unfortunately does make it probably quite easy to get my username snagged on new sites, but luckily I haven't had that problem yet, so. But yeah, I am SalemAudio everywhere except for my second YouTube channel, which is Salem Video, which is just for, it's currently not used, but it's what I have for my, it's what I have for my clips and clip compilations and things. It's what I use for that. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Ace. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I really heard the reverb on that one. One for Vampire Apothecary. Yeah. It's like there's so many. I've kind of had to start limiting myself into not making new characters because I really want to revisit a lot of the characters that I already have and kind of build them into something that's more fleshed out. I had plans for doing more of like a, I don't know, like a redacted style or a hollow VA style kind of like universe at one point, but I go back and forth between whether I want my priority to be storytelling or relaxation. I think that relaxation and sleepy vibes might be a little better focus for me. Because I think that, and I don't mean this as like a self-dig or anything like that. It's just, we're all better at some things and, you know, maybe a little less good at others. And I think like storytelling, like plot writing and stuff, is a little more difficult for me. So I think I like to leave, maybe, I don't know. But I might leave things like that more for like for other channels, you know. I'm not saying there won't be any in mine. I'm just saying like I mean like more of like the thick dramatic, you know, backstory woven plots and everything. It's a little hard to do with ASMR that's focused on primarily relaxation, because the whole point in a story is some sense of tension, right? There's some opposing force, and I just don't know how much I want to bring an element of tension into ASMR, you know? I had started playing around with it, and again, I'm not saying I won't. I'm just saying these are sort of my mental deliberations lately, that's all. The Kitsune needs another video. Blythe will for sure be getting another video, I can promise you that. I love my Kitsune. I love my Blythe. ever do anything sci-fi related? I'm not really a sci-fi person in particular. I'm much more into fantasy. And I know those two do tend to be sibling interests for a lot of people. But for me, it's very much focused on fantasy, personally. It's just my favorite, that's all. I just quite like monsters and magic. Yeah. Xenoblade is a good fusion. I don't know much about Xenoblade. I've seen it around. Sci-fi is fantasy where they give a more complexly worded explanation. That is kind of true to a degree. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with different kinds of storytelling. Not all stories have to be action. It's okay to have a story just for being neat. Not all character growth has to happen through drama, for example. Yeah, I fully agree on the character growth thing, and I've definitely explored ways of, because even if I don't necessarily go for like a story in the sense of, when you think about some of these other like VASMR channels, I do want to make sure I still have some character development, so that so the characters don't feel stale. I want them to even if they're not in a world that's going off the deep end, I do want to make sure that they're still characters that feel like people, that they feel like they exist in a world that's lived in. That they have some depth, that they're fleshed out well. Mashing genres together, and Walker Port ends with the knights and wizards traveling to the edge of space. Yeah, I will admit the sort of spacefaring aspects of Final Fantasy caught me off guard. What's the quote? Something about all I'm trying to remember. It's like all fantasy is insufficiently no. Something about like magic being science that we just don't understand yet. There's some quote about something like that. That sort of feels like the difference between sci-fi and magic, like what was being said before about how their sci-fi is just fantasy with explanations. There it is, Peanut got it. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Yeah, that was the quote I was thinking of. That's the one. Oh, I'm so sorry. All is possible. I just saw your follow. Thank you. Thank you, Alice, and welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining the comments. good to have you along with everybody else hanging out tonight. Thank you guys all so much for coming and hanging out. Thank you as well, Nekome. Thank you for the follow. It's good to have you here with us. Thank you. Mwah. Mwah. There we go. Calm stories that are really nice, make them feel like people. Yeah. Yeah, I think my style for ASMR tends to be more it's the idea of meeting people in their quiet moments, you know? Sort of between the crazy and the chaos. It's sort of, you know, the idea that it's not necessarily that the viewer that I'm portraying never meets Finn in his moments of rushing to class or, you know, in his stressful moments. But it's the idea that I'm picking the moments of calm in these characters' lives, and I still want a way to be able to show that they've grown and had life experiences in those moments of chaos. But those moments are not the moments that we're seeing, that we're relaxing to, and that we're getting our own rest in, you know? That's sort of the mentality that I have behind it, I guess. Goldflower, yeah. There's a surprising amount of sci-fi and D&D as well. Especially like with, what they called there was the whole module that was all about like space and spaceships, and I can't remember what they called them. They gave them a special D&D name. Starjammer. Yeah. Or Space Jammer? Something like that, you know. But yeah. Spelljammer, there we go. One of them S words. We got there eventually. Spellstormer. Yeah, that's the one wolf. Spellstormer. Also Nutmeg. Thank you. I'm glad you like the those shades of pink. Thank you. I'm quite fond of soft pink myself. It's so funny though, because I feel like soft pink there's this very fine line between like pretty and soft and magical, and then there's like, it's specifically when you start adding too much purple. When you start adding too much purple to light pink, it turns into this really like ghastly, sickly shade that I really don't like. It's kind of funny. It's a very fine line. had to pick a favorite, like, source book or anything from D&D, it would probably be Theros for me, which I know is not the most popular, but that sort of Greek pantheon, those kinds of vibes in Theros are very, very enjoyable to me. I think the only time I've ever really been able to get into sci-fi is there was a Dimension 20 campaign, and it was called oh, I'm blanking on it. It's gonna bother me if I don't look it up. A Starstruck Odyssey. Yeah, I think that was probably one of the strongest seasons of Dimension 20. And I was a little unprepared. Or I was a little not unprepared, but skeptical. I was a little skeptical going in that I would end up liking it because, as I've said, sci-fi is not my favorite. But hey, something about that plinth just got me. If you watched a Starstruck Odyssey, if you know, you know. Let's say sometimes you see a plinth and a brain slug and you can't resist. No, it's very good. I really like a Starstruck Odyssey. There's another game that I've been wanting to play though. That's another tabletop. And I can't remember the name exactly, as I usually can't seem to because my brain is made of Swiss cheese. But there's a TTRPG that's all about words. Your characters, your party is all like burgeoning demigods. And you get to choose a word associated with your character. And multiple even, I think. And you get to choose powers associated with that word. Oh, also, just a heads up, there's going to be an ad break starting in about 15 or 20 seconds, so please feel free to turn your volume down if need be. One more time. Ad break coming up in about 10 seconds, so please adjust volume as necessary. But there's this game where you end up playing a demigod that is like associated with words. Like if you play like somebody who is, I think one of the words is like hunt, so you can be sort of like the demigod of the hunt along with other things. And like there's a power that you can choose where you can navigate perfectly through any forest that you enter, things like that. And then like you can make a title for your character that is like every young adult, what would you call it? Like every young adult fantasy romance from 2021. It's all like a court of fey and ashes. A cottage of ruin and The dusty mushrooms. No, I don't know. But, no, yeah, so it's like you can have like a character that is like a god, like a demigod of the concept of the hunt and death. Something like that. A noun of noun and nouns is my favorite, but that's truly what everybody decided to publish their book in the last like 4 years, decided to, that's the format. Is this about work? No, it's, what's it? Let me find out what the name of it is. I want to say it's by Kevin Crawford, who also wrote my other favorite RPGs, Worlds Without Number and Stars Without Number. And recently wrote a sci-fi version, a cyberpunk game called Cities Without Number. Godbound. That's what the other game was called, Godbound. Yeah, Kevin Crawford, though, just shout out to the realest TTRPG designer out there. Just an amazing designer. Oh. Goldflower looking to get into other TTRPGs. Yeah, I think it's nice because it does give you a little more. You sort of realize after playing others what D&D is good at and what it's not, and then you realize like when you want to play a game that does a certain thing or has a certain mood, it's nice to be able to expand. I truly recommend it. Literally anything by Kevin Crawford. He is such an amazing game designer. There are a lot of games where I sort of feel like I need to know what somebody likes or what they're hoping for, what they want to get out of a game, to really give a proper suggestion. But truly anything by, like, Kevin Crawford is one of the few designers whose games I feel like I could literally throw to anybody and be like, hey, this is really good, you should try it. I think you'll probably like it. Oh, Stretch. Thank you very much. Thank you. Call of Cthulhu for Halloween. Oh, yeah. Call of Cthulhu is very different for sure. I haven't had a chance to play that one, but I've seen a lot about it. I've played, what have I played? I've played D&D. I played Vampire the Masquerade. I've played Stars Without Number and Worlds Without Number, which are pretty interchangeable games for the most part, just the flavor is a little different. I've played Mutant Year Zero. I played... What else have I played? I have to look at my... Oh, we played a TTRPG called Sins. Sins is probably the exact opposite of Kevin Crawford's games for me, where I'm like, yeah, my group and I had a lot of fun playing this game. Also, I don't recommend it to anyone. It's quite confusing. It's quite an overwhelming game. Like, I like a good bit of crunch in my games. But Sims was both too crunchy and not organized enough. It's like, there's a problem that a lot of TTRPGs have, where the creators sort of feel like they're doing the opposite of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They've decided that they love the baby and they love the bathwater, and they would like to keep that bathwater in their TTRPG. They just, a lot of the times they don't know how to kind of cull the extra information, and it ends up being really overwhelming, really disorganized. I think Vampire the Masquerade had this problem too, but the system has enough merits to sort of outweigh that. Like the flaws, the merits and flaws systems in Vampire is very fun. It's very cool. And Sims has cool stuff and fun stuff, but there's just something about the whole system that's... We might just not be the right group for it. We are trying it again, but we'll see. We'll see, maybe round 2 will go a little better. I want to chat, but I just want to sit here and listen. That's all. You're welcome to do whatever you want. But I'm happy. I hope you can get some rest either way. I want to keep watching the stream, but I also want to lay down. Oh, don't stay up just for me. The VOD will be here and everything too. If you wanna listen for some rest later on. I don't want to keep anybody up. That is actually quite the opposite goal of what's happening here. So if you need some rest, please do. I only had the chance to play D&D in person a couple of times, I think. Well, maybe a little more than a couple. I think maybe 5 or 6 times. There was a group that I found in Tokyo when I was there. And they were very fun to play with. Quite enjoyed that. But otherwise, all of my gameplay experience has been over Discord as well. Time to go Betty bye. Silver, good night. I took you in. I wish some good dreams for you. Nothing wrong about it, Ace. That's exactly what the stream is here for. You can tune in and tune out as you please. Whenever you need a little bit of rest and relaxation and slumber. But yeah, Silver, I hope you rest well. Good night, good night, good night. I'll be here, being as gentle as I can with your ears. Good scratches for a good puppy. Good puppy. Yeah, there's a good puppy. Aw. You like these scratches over here, puppy? Or maybe over here. Maybe over here is a little better. I think maybe the best scratch. I think are on both sides. Over here. And over here. Good puppy. There we go. That's it. Hey. You're okay. You're all good, you say. You're okay. You're okay. I got you. I got you. I got you. That's it. You get all the rest you need, puppy. That's what good puppies do, you know. They rest when they need it. They get sleep when they need it. Okay? You're gonna be a good puppy, right? I know you are. I know. That's it. Feels good. And boom. The chat has been hit with the furry polymorph. You're all furries. There's not a single innocent one among you. No, you just relax, okay? You rest. You lay your head down. Sometimes we just need a little peace and quiet. A little shut eye. A little time for our brains to process and wander. There's no need for any stress right now. There's no need to think right now. You can turn your brain off. Whether that means sleep or just resting and relax. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Everything is good right as it is. There's nothing to worry about right now. Puppies don't have anything to worry about, do they? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Become puppy. Become puppy. Puppies don't need to think. They just relax and sleep. Post your full streams on a YouTube channel. I've considered it, but I don't think that's in the cards. Just because number one, it's quite a bit of space to save all of my VODs and then remembering to upload them, which does take a little while even on speedier internet. It's just, there's a lot of focus that has to go to it for what I don't think is very much payoff compared to having something that is a more curated experience, like one of my edited videos and stuff. Never say never though. I won't rule it out as impossible. Made a kitsune character, permafox person mode. Yeah, that's cute. I love kitsune characters. Fox boys are one of my favorites. Oh, I'm glad you're cozy. I hope you're all cozy. I hope you're all getting comfy. Hope you're all relaxed and resting. It's good to see you all. It's good to have you all here. Nice quiet Saturday night. Just resting, just relaxing. letting your head bob, letting your eyelids fall, letting them rest. Please, if your eyelids feel heavy, just let them sink. Just let them fall. It's okay. Whether it's late or midday and you just need a nap. We all need to take care of ourselves. We need to rest, and that's what I'm here to help you with. I would be honored if you would let me help you rest, and let me send some good dreams your way. I can't make any promises, but I can do my very best. Just like how I know you've been doing your very best. I know you have. I know. And there's no need to have any reason to reward yourself. Sleep and rest isn't a reward. It's a need. And you don't have any reason that you would ever need to deny yourself those things. You deserve rest. You deserve comfort and sleep and food and shelter and quiet sounds and pretty noises for your ears. Those are all fundamental rights. The same as, this is just like food and water, pretty noises and sleepy things, all on the same level of the needs pyramid. Small treat, yeah, don't forget to treat yourself. The peppermint storage room, that'll clean. I can imagine. I would have liked to maybe take a little poke in there when I was sick and clear those sinuses right up. Oh, Ace, I'm glad you're cozy. I'm so glad. Please, get some rest when and if you can. Fizzle, I'm sorry you had a crazy morning, but I'm glad I could hopefully give you a little bit of calm and quiet, peace, and serenity. The reverbed chair squeak. SMH my head. More chair squeak per chair squeak. No, we want less. I do need to oil this chair up again. It's in need of it. I could tell. It will be squeaking. It will be squeaking. I do think we are probably going to start heading out and looking for a nice, cozy, relaxing place to settle in and tuckle our little puppies in for a little nap, for a little snooze. Ooh, hold on. Let's see what we can find. Oh, they've been streaming for a long time. Let's see. Oh, stretching a posture check. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, T-Man, I'm so sorry. It's a little late. I'm a little bit at the whims of the other people I live with for when I can do ASMR streams. I was hoping to start this a little earlier, but what can you do? Here, let's get a little more ear squitching in while I take a look. I don't wanna leave y'all without some ear squitching. There we go. Chair squeaks kind of count as ASMR to some. Yeah, probably. Probably. Made you a picture. Oh, Amy, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll go ahead and check Twitter. If not tonight, then hopefully tomorrow and take a look, assuming it's there. Thank you. I think one person I was looking at ended up, I think they're going to be finishing soon from the way it sounds. There's a lot of, I don't want to say this is a bad thing or anything, but there's a lot of sussy ASMR tonight. And I'm trying to send you guys somewhere calm. Still mainly use Twitter as gal. Yeah, it's just unfortunately Twitter is still where people mainly are. I know, and I'm very much a creature of habit, so it's been hard for me to get used to using Blue Sky. For the fact that I'm not used to using Blue Sky, it's very much a kind of a perpetual cycle with me. It's not ideal. It's not great. I've sort of always had that problem where I don't end up using, I don't move social media until, like, it is absolutely no other choice. Not because I want to stay there or anything, but just because I'm just stuck in my ways, I guess. Not so much decision paralysis. I just have a hard time doing new things. Not the flashbang Yuki. Yeah, Blue Sky still being invite only is I think a big problem where a lot of people can't just actually cannot move over there, so. I'm so sorry. I'm truly trying to find somebody to raid out into, but I just haven't found anybody that's quite what I was looking for. Ooh, maybe here's one. Yuki, I'm so sorry. You did kind of join right during the end. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to be that way, but you thought this was ASMR. But yeah, no, I understand the fact that, like, the bright sky background and all the light and the white and the pink and all of that, it's not exactly the ideal sleeping environment, but it is a sleeping environment. It's, nope, I thought that was... It's not that I'm stuck on, like, I'm not set on raiding into somebody who is, like, perfectly, like, I don't know, like, the image of serenity, but I keep going to streams and they're just real sussy tonight. Again, not a bad thing, just not quite the vibe that we've had here tonight. And that's I kind of try to, like, to match the vibes of where I send you guys as much to what my stream has been as possible, but I don't know if that's going to be possible tonight. I'm so sad. I saw Raisin was streaming earlier. Would have loved to send you off to Raisin, but unfortunately I was a little too late about starting to stream. Oh, sorry, I keep having to clear my throat. Light pink, very calm, there's a forest mist. Yeah, I always like to alternate my backgrounds, so don't worry, there will be more coming back up. Oh, next, I hope you rest well, thank you. Good night, rest well. Let's see. Comfy time tonight. Sleepy Saturday. Yeah, just a little restful night. I think I did find a place that we can maybe go doze. Some place with some nice sleepy sound, some rest, some calm. Yeah, let's head over here. I think you guys will like this one. It's sort of akin to those Twitch channels that are just like an aquarium, a turtle tank, like that kind of thing. It's sort of one of those kinds of channels. Also, Dino, thank you so much for the follow. Thank you, Dino. And welcome to the Coven. It's good to have you here with us. I like turtles. This one isn't like a turtle one specifically, but it's just that kind of vibe where it's not like one person in front of like a stream, like streaming and providing the ASMR and such, you know. It's very, hey, they put it all in the name. Relaxing Sounds channel. So we are going to go zoom over here. Oh, I actually did forget about daylight savings. Is that tonight? Oh my gosh, that's today. So we go an hour back, right? Did we just go an hour back? Is it supposed to be 2 a.m. right now? I have suddenly lost all hold on time. Yeah, I think it was supposed to turn to 2 a.m. just now and is now turning. I think it rolled back to 1 a.m. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Either way, we're gonna have to figure this out offline. Good luck to everybody. So sorry about the last minute confusion on the time. Trust me, I'm right there with you. Hey, I think one way or another, you get an extra hour of sleep. Hopefully, I think that's this one. I am all for... Okay, we need to stop doing daylight savings, but the problem is all of these places want to go to non-standard time. They all want to stay on daylight savings time. And I'm like, no, no, we can't. Also,